And she also was a part of a culture that pressures you to fit in and assume the attitudes of the whole. So she was also a product of her time. There are things that have changed. I mean, as I grow up and I mature, I understand why people behave the way they do. I don't necessarily excuse it though, because I think that there are many people who went through the same situation, were a product of the same situation or very similar situations, but they made other decisions. And I will tell you that the decision my mom made came after I came out, and she had a conversation with my uncle, who was a psychologist, and he told her that gay men have very difficult lives, and and she had that conversation with me. It was the only one that we had, and it was because I was writing about gay issues. This is after I came out, and we never really talked about that. But many years later, very recently, maybe in 2017, when I knew that I was going to self-publish, and my thematic was about my life as a gay man in Barbados, I knew that I wanted to tell her, and so I did. And and it was just something that we just never talked about, which is a common thing in the Caribbean. But also started to push boundaries and dress the way I felt like dressing, very unisex sometimes. And she'd make a comment. She called me her crazy son. Another thing that I thought was interesting actually was I went to a church function and I was me and I sang karaoke, and she seemed to be pretty amazed at how I was received by the congregation, especially her friends, the women in the congregation. She would tell me that, oh, they can't stop asking for you now. And I thought it was an interesting thing because it felt almost as if she needed them to accept me for it to be okay with her. Well, I feel like I've just been talking. I kind of wanted really though to talk about the impact that this had on my life. I think that I really resisted being myself 100% around her because it could draw criticism. And now that she has died, I feel free. It's early stages. I mean, I'm still planning the funeral, but I already feel like a weight has lifted because, and there are reasons for this, being a single parent to an autistic kid, I think reinforced her negative bias, and so she has had a tendency to look for what was wrong and to criticize it. I would tell her look for solutions, not the problems, but then she would have found a problem with the solution I presented. um, so I was less of myself, I think, around her. And I mean, I spent lots of time overseas. I lived overseas for many, many years, but I returned and kind of got trapped by COVID. And then both she and my father were are pretty old, or were pretty old in her case. But so I decided to stay to help out with my sister and etc. So, but being back in my childhood home, I felt those old fears and concerns. Using her car, for example, having to tell her that I'm going to use her car and what I'm going to do felt a lot, very reminiscent of being a teenager asking permission. And so, yeah, there was a lot of just stress. That's the 12-minute alarm. I said I'm gonna go for 12 minutes and split it in half like I did with the first video. But yeah, I mean, it feels like we're here to experience life, and struggles are a good opportunity to learn things about yourself. I worry about my level of stress though, because I feel it in my body sometimes. And it's just a combination of so many different things, you know. My relationship with my mother, just being gay in Barbados, the societal pressures to conform, the microaggressions, and then I'm like, so why don't you leave? Because of my sister now. I've taken over care for my sister, and I'm not sure what that would look like if she were to go to a home. I don't trust that she would be well taken care of. And right now, I just need things to be easy because I've taken on a lot of responsibility and I'm exhausted all the time. And after the funeral, I imagine that there'll be a break, but it's just been the worst part of this entire scenario has been the million calls that you will get because each person I understand, each person, you know, they want to express their sympathies, but mm, that turns out to be lots of people and it can be exhausting, especially when you have people who thought they would be strong in the phone call, but then they're crying, and it's like, oh, I wish you would have cried before and after this phone call and not during. So, and then just my father has a bit of dementia, so every once in a while he'll cuss me out, and then my sister is severely autistic. She's not what you see in Hollywoodian movies. She has days where she's calm, but the days that she's agitated, she seems manic.